All right, everybody. We're about to begin our next presentation. And I'm going to hand this off to Joe to do some emceeing for this. So it's all you, man.
Hey, everybody. Joe Gabriel from the Lightship Developer Relations team. Thanks for being here. This is great. One of my favorite things I get to do is show off some awesome developers that I feel really lucky to work with. First one here being Will. Will from Sugar Creative. Give it up for Will. Yeah, real quick little story time, all right, guys? So 1 year ago, 2022, I get a random DM on the GDC networking messaging app, and it was this guy, Will, that was in town for GDC exactly 1 year ago. You messaged me kind of out of the blue and said, hey, I'm doing some interesting work. I'd love to chat. Last February, Braxton, myself, Brent, one of our other partner engineers, we had a chance to visit London for a separate event, and we got to meet Will and is Jason here? Is Jace here?
Should be. I think he's
here. We got to meet them in a little town called Winchester, about 2 hours bus ride south of London, and we got to go experience one of their live activations that they had going there that they had built that's using AR, using really cool historical content. Will's going to dive into all of this today, but I just want to tell you, please learn from these guys. They've found a really unique kind of business model that I think is fantastic, where powerful content partnerships, as well as historical, cultural relevant content and cultural heritage, and working with city planners and working with other municipal entities to bring about really cool content. So this is Will. Give it up for Will.
Thank you, guys. I cannot even begin to live up to that intro. We are not that cool, but what we try and do is make a few cool bits and pieces, which is why we want to speak to Niantic. A huge thank you for being able to be here. Just very, very quickly, I'm going to just go, this is Sugar Creative. We make things using creative technology. Small UK-based team, just going, what would be cool? What can we make? What's emerging? And that's led us to do stuff from education to culture to medtech to entertainment. And we've worked with some cool people. So we've worked with Hyundai, the BBC, we've worked with Dr. Seuss and Aardman, and then obviously Ubisoft, which we're going to be talking about in a minute. It's also been fortunate enough to win a whole bunch of awards. There's only 12 of us. We're only based in the UK, but we've got nominated for a Digital Cannes Lion, Beamer 10, got a couple of Best in Worlds, which has been absolutely insane for the few years we've been going. Today, I'm just going to very quickly touch on the unexpected and wonderful. Hopefully, this will be vaguely interesting to some of you. I don't know what your backgrounds are, but if you're kind of devy wondering how to make something a bit creative, this might be interesting. There are two key bits to it. Things which are transportative and things which are transformative. Now, these tools have allowed us to build authored environments, something which isn't new, not at all. But what's new is that these can now be in an almost infinite number of spaces. So powered by Niantic, there's a new toolbox, and the toolbox goes to make digital things where physical world elements can be part of that. And one of the key reference points we're going to be using to illustrate that is 878 AD. So I wonder if this will work. There will probably be no sound. So just imagine in the background various Viking horns, a very exciting drum-based soundtrack.
To Anglo-Saxon Winchester. Experience
And
the sights and sounds.
You can see we're taking this incredibly seriously. This is a short trailer which is for the experience. It was created in partnership with Hampshire Cultural Trust, one of the most forward-looking cultural organizations in the UK, and Ubisoft, who obviously don't need an introduction. 878 is a hybrid experience combining physical exhibition, geolocated city-scale immersive XR, and gameplay, all connected with a single overarching story that is set in the world of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Fortunately for us, this meant that we could go and say, excuse me, Unity, would you mind giving us a few assets from your rather nice game? And then they give us 18 million terabytes of stuff, and we were able to rip these incredible assets of these city components and then put them into this mobile game. So we have a geolocated experience in which stuff can come to life that's been made and lets you step inside what is essentially the game itself. Now, this is it's a thing. It's okay. It's not definitive of everything that's possible by a long way, but we're extremely proud to have been able to create it. And it's been well received. It seems to be quite fun. And hopefully it'll be an inspiration and catalyst for other things that can be done. So why is any of that relevant? Well, for me, it's because an experience that's tethered to the real world can be driven by interaction and story. And that itself is something which is really close to how we imagine as people. So if I were to say, imagine an elephant, you would all be looking into the empty space and going, well, that's where an elephant would be, and you're picturing it in your mind's eye. So when we can do this with AR, and when we can set that inside a place, a real physical location, it is the thing that's most similar to how we imagine, how children play, and the thing that you get from it is a sense of wonderment. So to make that less abstract, on the left here, there's a clip of a moment from 878. You've arrived at the city's west gate, and you're able to step into the memory of a gate warden who asks you to practice a bunch of archery. This is so that you're better able to defend against Viking incursions, and so on and so forth. The Anglo-Saxon west gate from the game appears full size in front of you, and you're able to shoot it. But crucially, it does so at the exact location that gate, that Anglo-Saxon west gate, would have been in the real world. So this is about 1,000 years ago, hence the date. This is no longer there. You are at that location using a VPS system, using some of the Niantic tools. Thing appears, you are stepping back in time. And you have this wonderful blurred hybrid moment. On the right is a completely different moment, a moment from a game called Fix Up the City. It's an XR game that created in partnership with TRG, Potato, and Aardman. They feature Wallace and Gromit. It's again geolocated. It's an interactive story. It's the first new story that was created for the duo in 10 years. And it places you at the heart of a really very, very silly revenge story. So this is a moment in which the giant robot that is being set loose on the city by the person you're against takes umbrage at your robot companion, destroys it, and then makes a hasty exit around the building. This is the specific location that it takes place. And as a result, the interaction with the building, as you can see, he's able to disappear behind it, he's able to destroy it, and so on and so forth. How do we do that in practice? Just very, very quickly, we combined real-world scanning, digital assets, creating of hybrid spaces, and something which is made possible through, in particular, the Scaniverse tools that Niantic have, to create this really fun little loop. Understanding, adding, transforming, and then experiencing. So within 878, there's a very lovely moment that takes place in this remarkably old set of walls. It's not very exciting as it is. It is where you are going to investigate the disappearance of a priceless reliquary. And this is the location that the bishop's palace from the era actually stood. So this is where it starts, and this is the place where we wanted to be able to set this story. We scanned this. We scanned it in a ridiculous amount of detail. And this is where Scaniverse tool came in, down to sub 1 centimeter detail. And it's a 3D object that we were then able to put in and load into Blender, then into Unity, and start to build in a digital version of the space. So you can then see how the rooms came to life, they came into being, and then to create a hybrid space where the room is recreated in front of you. This is then the basis of the experience that you're able to move through, interact with, and discover various assorted clues. It doesn't have to be big scale. As the other thing that's come across really recently is the fact that museums are incredibly excited for this shit. I mean, they are losing their minds going, wow, what can we do with objects in our collection? Especially, and I know you have some of this in the US, but in the UK, most of the stuff in our museums is there because we turned up with a flag and a gun and went, excuse me, I think we'll have that. So they're now having to deal with this question of going, what do we keep, what do we give back? The stuff that we're giving back, how do we digitize it? But more importantly, how do we tell the story that is around it in a meaningful way? And crucially, that this interpretation is varied. So this is one of the things we've been doing with National Museum in Wales. taking an object, scanning it, creating a processed digital version, and then placing that back into AR. What I can't show you is that we're also now building a tool that doesn't just place it into AR, but recognizes the object to begin with, and then lets you have an empathy engine where you're seeing it entirely subjectively by other people's interpretations. To go quickly back to 878, this sense of wonder, the sense of place, we can also use geolocation, and that's what we did for 878. Geolocation, great, a little bit inaccurate because basically the government doesn't want to give you super accurate geolocation because otherwise you'll make guidance systems for missiles, but does mean that you know roughly where you are so that you can then layer that in. And I know that is the basis of a lot of the Niantic system, combining visual and scan and geolocational. So this is where GPS was a component, and then also crucially, that then lets you map. So it lets you map the experiences that you have to guide the user through it. So this overarching story in 878 requires you to step into memories scattered throughout the city. This is how they're then organized. The stepping into memories, as well as being transformative, as we just looked at, are also transportative. So you can step into things and be in that old place. So on the left-hand side here, not 878, this is actually an experience of exploring Jack the Ripper's Victorian London, where you're investigating the various murders. And on the right, 878, where you're stepping into the memory of a leech, so a medicine man of the period, to create medicines for a number of afflicted individuals. So I know time is progressing, but I wanted to very quickly say that this AR, this transportative stuff, this transformative stuff, it's good, but it gets really, really good when it starts to be aware of the real world in which you're in. Now, everyone will recognize the lion, and it was a huge inspiration when we first saw it. The fact that it reacts to the lights turning off, every single dev in the team went, yes, we want that, and we want to do it, and we want to make it so that we are reacting to the real world. So we did. So here are two really cool examples. On the left, you have, from Big Fix Up, you have some robot pigeons that invade your room. Look for areas within the room that are tables, flat surfaces, elevated from the floor, and then know to go and land on them before you have to then try and catch them. So this is unique and variable room-aware AR. And on the right-hand side, Dr. Seuss, in which the world of Dr. Seuss fills your room, whichever room it is, putting different types of content on the different surfaces, and then letting the characters move through that space in any way that they choose, but fundamentally unique to your environment. This is an absolute nightmare for storytelling, because you don't just have emergent story, you have emergent story within environments you can't really control. We've done a hell of a lot of work in this sphere. We've been very fortunate to receive several £million from the UK government to really try and define that. I'm not going to go into all of the findings that we had from it, but essentially it boils down to embrace the chaos. Really just lean into the fact that you have things that you're controlling, things that you're not controlling, and you have to find those moments that are shared and common, but allow for people to experience it in a fundamentally different way. Now that sounds really lovely. It's full of beautiful creativity and an absolute nightmare when it comes to approvals from any large organization. Fortunately, and this is where a massive shout out goes out to Ubisoft, their story teams and their willingness to be on board with stuff that is not fixed, second to none. I know that they've had some assorted press over the years, but the experience we've had with their creative team is absolutely incredible. We were able to harness the fact that there are memories and the fact that there is an overarching lore to this to allow you to step into them. And that's, again, a way of engaging with the story that's been incredibly useful for us. Very quickly, then, how does that work? We found that the best way to do it is story beats, and within those beats, story moments, and then key moments, and accepting that most users will probably hit 70% of your content. So long as they have fun, why does that matter? And that's kind of where we sit, that we've had here a few little bits and pieces of, wasn't this fun? Wasn't this interesting? 878, we think it's pretty darn cool. It's just the start. and it's a start that hopefully will inspire, and a start that wouldn't have been possible without the tools from Niantic, creative brands being able to be really bold and really forward-looking. So, because I think I've got a couple more minutes, do we have any questions?